What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to a brand new episode of the Jesse Hughes Show. It's been a while since we've been here, but we are glad to be back. Welcome back. And as always, we are sponsored by our friends over at Deus Volt Lapel Pins. Go to deusvoltlapelpins.com. Use my code ChristFamilyNation26 for 10% off your order. You can get some awesome pins just like the one that I'm wearing here, the Appeal to Heaven flag. This glows in the dark, by the way. And you can get Kairos, you can get Jerusalem crosses, you can get all sorts of American heritage themed things. You can get all sorts of stuff, and it's all 10% off if you use my code ChristFamilyNation26. Make sure you go and take advantage of that. Now, we have had a lot happen in the past few weeks. I haven't been on here in a couple of weeks since my conversation with Chase Davis, but in that time, we have had a lot go down and we have got a lot to discuss, including some primary results, one of which unfortunately affected me directly. We will talk about that later. I did not run for office. You guys would have known if I was running for office, but someone I was working for. And we will discuss that a little bit later. The most important and most recent news when it comes to the primary front is that of the Florida gubernatorial election, specifically the Republican primary in the Florida gubernatorial election, where you had Byron Donalds, supported in the past. I supported him when he was vying to become the Speaker of the House during the whole Kevin McCarthy debacle. We all remember that. He is someone who I have generally liked in the past, but he is definitely more of the establishment pick. He was endorsed by Trump. He was endorsed by the late, great Charlie Kirk. And I think he will be a good governor, but he was not my first choice, to be sure. You had him going up against a slew of candidates, including the lieutenant governor of Florida, several state representatives, state senators, several different people. But you also had a contender in the race by the name of James Fishback, someone who was more into investments, software, that kind of world, was not necessarily in the political world. He had been kind of political in the past, but he came out of nowhere and captured a lot of attention and ended up becoming a serious force in some corners of the internet and also a serious joke in other corners of the internet. I was not a fan of Fishback, and if you saw my Twitter on Tuesday night, you saw me gloating that he lost. But I wasn't necessarily gloating that he lost as much as I was gloating at his supporters, all of whom thought that he was actually going to win. He got about 10% of the vote in the whole state, which is not insignificant, but you got to do better than 10% if you're going to get anywhere. Now, I am not necessarily anti what some of Fishback's policies were. When he first announced that he was running, he went against things like H-1B visas. He went against things like tearing down Confederate monuments. These are things that broadly I support. I was not necessarily opposed to any of that. The reason that I did not think that Fishback was a good candidate and was not going to do well is because he did not run a serious campaign. It started out serious. It seemed like it had a lot of potential. But for some reason, whether it was because of advisors or whether it was because of different people in his camp, Fishback decided to go the route of courting the online right known to many, especially a certain corner known to many of us all as the retard right. This is, of course, not a good electoral strategy. He talked a lot about Israel. He talked a lot about foreign influence in elections. And while foreign influence in elections is certainly something that I think we should talk about, I think that's an important issue, making it a central theme of a governor campaign is not exactly what I think is a smart decision. When people are looking at a governor, they're not looking necessarily for someone who's going to get involved in the big national fights. They're looking for someone that's going to make their state better. And in the case of Florida, they're looking for someone who is going to be a worthy successor to Ron DeSantis. Unfortunately, I think all of the candidates in the primary, Byron Donalds included, fall way below that bar. I don't think any of them are going to be quote unquote worthy successors to Ron DeSantis. I do think Byron Donalds is going to do a good job. He wouldn't have been my first choice, but he is better than Fishback. And I got a lot of pushback from many of my friends, included, about James Fishback, about me not liking him. I had people asking why I was happy he lost. I had people claiming that I was posting some sort of Fed slop. I had people saying that I was a neocon or that I was celebrating with the neocons. And here's the thing. Here's the thing about Fishback that I did not like. He made his entire campaign entirely online. He was trying to get the support of a lot of online elements that didn't necessarily align with on-the-ground results. He was not good at fundraising. He did not raise a lot of money. And I know funding is not everything in politics, but he also was not the best at messaging. Now, his message resonated a lot with younger people, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But with a broad electorate, he did not really have the best messaging. He had very low name ID, and he didn't have it. And you need a strong message that will resonate with a broad coalition of voters. He did not have that. Part of which is because, like I said at the outset, he made Israel a very prominent issue in his campaign. Once again, I don't care what your opinion on Israel is. I have friends on various sides of this issue. I personally find myself in the middle of most of them. But when it comes to the Israel issue, and I've made this point on X, voters are growing sick and tired of it because it's all that they've heard about for a long time. You have had on the right for several years a very pro-Israel message dominating political conservatism. Now, on elements of the right and on the left, you have a very anti-Israel message that is growing in popularity and is constantly being put out at the forefront. And to be honest with you, Israel might be your top issue, but it's not the majority of voters' top issues. All right? Israel does not even crack the top 10, the most important issues for the average American voter. They are quite frankly, I believe, sick and tired of hearing about it. They are quite frankly not going to listen to you if your main message is Israel, Israel, Israel all of the time. Whether you're pro or whether you're against, it does not matter. The median American voter is sick and tired of hearing about Israel. Now, if you're someone who doesn't like Israel, or if you're someone who does like Israel, and you want to make that an important part of your politics, then go ahead when you're in office and do whatever you want with it. In Fishback's case, I'm not quite sure how much the governor of Florida actually has to do with American foreign policy, but if you're someone running for federal office, if you're against Israel or for Israel, if you want to win, the key is to just shut up about it because people are sick and tired of it. You've had for several years, and this is not all pro-Israel people, but you've had for several years a small but loud portion of the pro-Israel right that has and continues to advocate as if Israel is the greatest country on earth. In some cases, they will even say better than America. They will say that they have never done anything wrong and they are incapable of doing anything wrong, and that America should do anything that Israel asks us to do. People don't like that. On the other side, you have people, and this is not the entire anti-Israel right, as we know, but you have people who will make the case that Israel is the cause of every single ill in the entire world, that they have caused every single problem the United States has ever faced, and that the only solution is to nuke Tel Aviv or something. To most voters, that also sounds a little bit schizophrenic, and that's not going to resonate. I think that the message that is going to end up resonating the best with the American people is what J.D. Vance has been putting out. That America, because of its role, has alliances, America should take a step back and focus more on what's going on at home, but we should maintain good relationships with other countries. And that when it is within our interest to work with Israel, then we should work with Israel. And when it is not within our interest to work with Israel, then we should not work with Israel. And when it comes to foreign influence, whether it's Japan, whether it's Israel, whether it's the United Kingdom, whether it's China, whether it's Brazil, whether it's any country on earth, foreign money should not be influencing the opinions of American politicians. American politicians should be serving the interest of the American people first and foremost. That is why they are elected. That is why they are in office. And it doesn't matter what other countries want us to do. If it does not fall within the interest of the American people, we should not be doing it. And if other countries are going to try to influence our politicians with money, that is wrong. That is a very, very moderate case, a very, very solid case, and one that if you end up talking about Israel at all as a political candidate, one that you should be following. Now, James Fishback, despite his flaws, did have some good ideas, and I think that's why a lot of people ended up supporting him. Unfortunately, you had anyone from Nick Fuentes to my friend Isaiah Lafone supporting James Fishback. It was a very, very wide net, but it only netted 10% of the support in the state of Florida. Whereas you've had similar candidates who actually know how to run serious campaigns, who actually know how to support their voters, who actually know how to speak to their voters, getting better results and even outright winning their primaries. It's not that I'm against everything that James Fishback stands for. Many people have confused me in the last 24 or so hours for being some kind of neocon because of my position on Fishback. But here's the thing. I don't think he was a serious political candidate, and that's why I didn't get behind him. I didn't endorse anybody in this race. I didn't really think there was anybody worth endorsing in this race. Whereas in other races, in Texas, you had people like Beau French. You had people like Brandon Gill. You had people like Brandon Herrera. In Tennessee, you had Monty Fritz running for governor. In Iowa, you have Zach Lane. All over the country, you have candidates who are running on an anti-establishment, populist message, aligning with America first and aligning with President Trump that are getting better results than James Fishback. And why is it? Because they were serious. They communicated not to the online segments of the right to try and get clicks on Twitter, but they communicated to their actual constituency, to the voters that they would have to be relying on for their primary and general election victories. They communicated to the actual voters, brought in money from fundraising, got support from local politicians within their communities, and were able to raise their name ID. That is how you win. That is how you win. Zach Lane went on a Christian, conservative, Maha message, a message about putting America first and about improving the economic situation for young people in Iowa. And he was able to beat a Trump-endorsed candidate. Not only was he able to beat a Trump-endorsed candidate, he was able to convince an organization, Turning Point Action, to endorse him over the Trump-endorsed candidate. It's probably not the first time Turning Point has endorsed against Donald Trump. It probably won't be the last time. Most of the time, their endorsements align. But with Zach Lane, he had such a compelling message that he was able to rally the people of Iowa. In the final hour, he got Steve Deace on board. He got Turning Point Action on board. And he got a ton of young people in his state on board. And he was able to win the primary. Someone like that is who we should be replicating when we are trying to think about how we progress forward an America First movement that's going to answer many of the questions that we face today. That is the kind of thing that we should be basing our movement off of. What Zach Lane did, what Brandon Herrera did, what Brandon Gill did. And in the end, Zach Lane ended up getting the support of the president. This is how we win. You have to play within the rules sometimes. You can't go off on this unorthodox, wild spree. Now, it worked to an extent for Trump, but he was still able to get some institutional backing from many of the Freedom Caucus types. You remember Steve King, he endorsed Trump right out of the gate. These kinds of people. Trump was an outsider and was unique in his political campaigning for the time, but he also knew how to play within the game. And for many of the young people out there who are wondering, how do I get involved? How do I play within the game? As I answered to someone on X the other night, you have to follow the Jesse Hughes playbook. Basically, do something similar to what I did and how I got to where I am in my life. I got involved very early on in college. I became the leader of our college Republicans chapter. I was also involved in the Turning Point chapter and several other conservative clubs on campus. I have interned for a House committee and 2 separate congressmen. I am a regular attendee of our local GOP meetings, even when they are boomer fests, because you have to have a young person in there to push back and push the Overton window on issues that matter. You have to be well dressed. You have to be well spoken. You have to actually take yourself seriously. If you are ungroomed and look like a slob, people are not going to take you seriously. If you want to get a foothold in Republican politics, that is what you have to do. And you can't do it through another route. You have to do it through Republican politics. As much as we may hate it, the United States has a 2-party system. It is not going to break anytime soon. The Republican Party is still the best vehicle that we have for the change that we want to make. And we see people are rising up like Brandon Gill, like Josh Hawley, like Brandon Herrera, Beau French. All of these people are within some sphere of our conservative brand of conservatism that we want to push forward. J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States. As bad as the Republican Party is, it used to be so much worse. It used to be a whole heck of a lot worse, and it has gotten incredibly better in the years since I have been active. There is still a lot of work to do. Nothing is perfect. But you can't put your head down and bury your head in the sand and blackpill. And similarly, you can't put your money behind candidates that have no shot because they're not serious. You actually have to run a serious person in a serious political campaign. That is how you win. That is how you make change. You can't do it by being a complete nobody who just yells a lot on X. X posters are important. I am one. X posters are important. We love our X posters. But you actually have to take these things seriously as well if you're going to make any sort of change whatsoever within the party apparatus. There were a lot of other primaries that have happened in the recent weeks, and I do want to talk very shortly about one that I was involved in that did not go our way. As many of you may know, I kept it quiet because of different ethics rules and things. I kept it quiet for most of the summer, but this summer I had the privilege of working in district for one Mr. Congressman Andy Ogles, a total patriot, someone who is pushing for remigration, someone who is pushing to repeal Hart-Celler, a total patriot on immigration, the most important issue that matters. Unfortunately, he lost his primary. Sometimes we lose the good ones, even when we think that they have a good shot. And unfortunately, that happened to Andy Ogles. He is a total patriot. I've had some people who I'm not going to talk about, who I'm not going to name, try to say that it's a good thing that he lost because he's a Zionist shit. He takes money for Israel. He supports Israel. He doesn't. It doesn't matter. Can you point to me one person in Congress who's a Republican who's anti-Israel? And does that person, I know a lot of you are thinking of Thomas Massey. Thomas Massey's on his way out too, thankfully. Thomas Massey is anti-Israel, so I know that gets a lot of your jollies up. I know a lot of you like that. Thomas Massey, does he support remigration? Does he? Does he support repealing Hart-Celler? Do you know? Does Massey support anything when it comes to the most important issue that matters when it comes to immigration? He doesn't? Then shut up. I don't care. I've already laid out my case on what I think about Israel several times. I'm in the middle. When it's within our interest to work for them, let's do it. When it's not, let's not. Andy Ogles could be the biggest cheerleader that Israel has ever had, and I would not care. Because he is the only person in Congress right now who is pushing to repeal Hart-Celler and is pushing for remigration. That is the most important issue at the moment. That is the only thing that matters to me at the moment. Anything else is irrelevant hogwash. I do not care. And so, when it comes to candidates, when it comes to the people that we are trying to push forward and elect, Israel cannot be the main issue. Because there are plenty of patriots who are pushing for mass deportations, who are pushing for remigration for legal immigrants, who are pushing for the repeal of Hart-Celler, who are pushing the envelope on the issue that matters, immigration, who just so happen to support Israel. And I am not going to let that keep me from supporting that person. Do I like how much money AIPAC spends? No. Do I like how much influence Israel has or seems to have over our politics? I don't even know if they have that much influence, to be honest with you, but to the extent that they do, I'm not a fan of foreign influence in any sort. But I don't care if you love Israel. I don't care if you hate Israel. I don't care if you're the biggest cheerleader they've ever had. I don't care if you're J.D. Vance, who's in the middle and has what I think is a coherent policy position on it. I don't care who you are. If you suck on immigration, I'm not going to support you. If you are good on immigration, I am going to support you. That is my line in the sand. And maybe it's not a good enough line for some of you. Quite frankly, I do not care. I do not care. Immigration is the thing that we need to be focusing on right now. Foreign influence matters. Social issues matter. I rail about social issues all the time. I think abortion needs to be completely abolished. I think gay marriage is a disgrace. I think all of these things need to be dealt with. But so long as we have millions and millions of foreigners in this country that will vote blue no matter who, those other issues are never going to get solved because Democrats are going to get into power. But dude, it's not about left versus right. It's about the Epstein class versus the... You are an idiot if you believe that. If you truly believe it's not between left and right, it's not left versus right, you don't know what you're talking about. You're stupid. I don't care who I piss off saying that. It is true. It is about left versus right. Because on the right, you have a very broad coalition, some of which are not good people that we need to deal with, and some of which are patriots that we need to support. What do you have on the left? Communism. Total and complete communism. What do you have on the left? People who want to kill us. People who want to kill people that look like me just because I am white. What do you have on the left? Complete and utter chaos, anti-Christian chaos. What do you have on the left? An entire movement of people who screamed and cheered and applauded and laughed when Charlie Kirk was murdered in public. It is about left versus right. I am never going to ally with someone who wants to bring in 1 billion foreigners into the country and cheered when Charlie Kirk got shot. I am never going to ally with that person. I don't care how good they are on Israel or whatever. I do not care. And I will never care. Because so long as the left is full of people who want to kill me, my children, my family, and my friends — I don't have children yet, but hopefully, God willing, one day — so long as the left is full of people who want to kill me, want to kill my family and friends, so long as the left is full of people who applauded when Charlie Kirk was murdered, so long as that is the left, I will never ally with them on any issue. Ever. It might not be about left versus right to you, but I guarantee you, to the left, it is certainly about left versus right. And they will laugh and applaud as you follow them down whatever loophole you want to on Israel and make that your only issue that matters. They will laugh and applaud you all the way to the bank, and then they will line you up against the same wall that they do me and shoot us both in the head. So go ahead if you want. Go ahead if you want. Make it all about Israel. Make it all about Israel. I don't care. Go ahead if you want and say, it's not left versus right, dude. It's the elites versus the people and the Epstein class and Israel and all. Go ahead. Go right ahead. If the communists win, I'll see you in the camps. And then we can talk about it then. As for me, and as for the people I care about, and as for my friends, we are going to plunge forward into total victory. We are going to ensure that Democrats never take power in this country again. And we are going to fulfill the actual true legacy of Charlie Kirk, who, by the way, made it his life goal to make sure that a single Democrat never entered office again. He had some wins, he had some losses. That's life. But we are going to make sure that total right-wing victory actually happens. And if you're going to get in the way of that, because we just so happen to partner with some people who you don't think are based on Israel, I don't know what to tell you, man. I don't know what to tell you. I'm going to support candidates on the issues that currently matter. Immigration, affordability, making life better for the American people, making sure that my children and grandchildren one day have a nation to inherit. I am not interested in any notions or any ideas of allowing for a complete and total collapse so my right-wing based dictator will take over, because quite frankly, that's never going to happen. Quite frankly, if there is a collapse, it's probably the communists that are going to fill the vacuum, and I'm not willing to take that chance. I want my kids and grandkids to have something to inherit. I want them to have a nation and a heritage to be proud of. I don't want there to be total collapse and total capitulation to the left and total chaos. I want to maintain and revitalize the United States of America. And if that means electing Republicans who are good on the issues I care about and may just so happen to support Israel or not support Israel, I'm going to do what I believe is best, and that is voting straight ticket Republican every time I can, and making sure that I'm not neglecting my duties of participating in a primary. If you want better Republicans, the answer is not to teach the GOP a lesson by electing Democrats. The answer is to vote in your primary. Vote in your primary. Elect somebody better. Put up a candidate you think is better. Support them. Door knock for them. Not make phone calls for them. Do whatever you need to do to get that person to win. And if they're unserious like James Fishback, I don't want to hear you complain after. If they are a serious person like Beau French or Andy Ogles or Brandon Gill or J.D. Vance or Brandon Herrera or any number of patriots across this country, if they win, we will celebrate and cruise and go on to victory. And if they don't win, we will try again. That is how we achieve victory, not by surrendering. You do not win by losing. You win by winning. And I am interested in winners, not losers. So if you want to make Israel your whole thing, go right ahead. When me and my friends win, maybe we'll let you join the party. Maybe we won't. It depends on how annoying you've been. But we will get to that bridge when we get there. We will cross that bridge when we get there. All right. Well, it's been a lovely night. Thank you guys so much for joining. I know this was a bit of a shorter episode, but we should have some longer episodes coming up for you soon. In the meantime, hit that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. Hit follow on X. Do all the things on all of the platforms. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, make sure to subscribe or follow. Make sure to leave a comment down below. Please leave a comment. Please. Don't make me beg. Don't make me be like Jeb Bush. Don't make me do a police clap. Can't believe I said that. Just please, if you feel so inclined, leave us a comment and maybe a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast platform. Whatever you feel so inclined to do. I love you guys. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for watching. God loves you and so do I. God bless. Have a great night and a great rest of your week.